You know what separates the people who dream about change from the people actually change their lives? It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not even motivation, because motivation is a liar. It disappears the moment things get tough. Separates them is this: they do the things they don't want to do. They wake up when the bed feels too good. They push through when every cell in their body screams to stop. They make the call when fear tells them to wait. And here's the truth. Every single breakthrough in your life, every transformation you're searching for is hidden behind the doors you least want to open. The uncomfortable, the inconvenient, the painful. That's where your future lies. If you can train yourself to step into what you don't want, that's when you step into who you were meant to become. So today, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to ask you to strip away the excuses, the lies you tell yourself, the comfort you've been hiding in. And I promise you this: if you listen with your heart wide open and your mind ready for war, by the end of this message, you'll never look at resistance the same way again. Comfort is killing your potential. Think about it. Every time you've settled for what's easy, every time you've chosen convenience over challenge, you've traded growth for temporary relief. And it feels good in the moment, right? Hitting the snooze button feels good. Skipping that workout feels good. Saying, I'll do it tomorrow feels good. But here's the trap: comfort rewards you immediately and robs you long term. Growth does the opposite. It costs you right now, but it pays you forever. The truth is, your life will always reflect the level of discomfort you're willing to embrace. If you keep running from resistance, if you keep avoiding what feels hard, you'll stay exactly where you are. That's why so many people get stuck. They want success. They only want it if it's convenient. They want change, but only if it feels comfortable. And the problem is, life doesn't reward comfort. Life rewards courage. Life rewards action in the face of resistance. Think about the strongest moments of your life. They weren't born in times when everything was easy. They were forged in the fire of struggle in the days when you didn't want to push forward, but you did anyway. When you look back, those are the moments that defined you, the ones that stretched you, the ones that proved you're capable of far more than you believed. Comfort never gave you that gift. Comfort gave you nothing but stagnation. Here's the danger. Comfort doesn't show up as a villain. It doesn't come crashing into your life screaming, I'm here to destroy your dreams. It shows up quietly. It shows up in the form of procrastination. Shows up as scrolling on your phone for just a few more minutes. It shows up as rationalization, telling yourself, I deserve a break. I'll start tomorrow. This isn't the right time. And the tragedy is, those small choices compound. They build a life where potential dies not with a bang, but with a whisper. Let me tell you something. You were not built for comfort. You were built for expansion. You were built to grow, to stretch, to conquer challenges. That's why when you're too comfortable for too long, you feel empty inside. You might not even be able to explain it, but you feel that gnawing dissatisfaction, that restless energy. That's your soul telling you you're made for more. Yet most people silence that voice because growth demands pain, and pain is the price very few are willing to pay. Now imagine this. What if the very things you resist are the exact keys to your freedom? If the conversation you've been avoiding is the one that heals a relationship? What if the workout you dread is the one that transforms your body? What if the business risk you've been putting off is the one that changes your financial future? Comfort blinds you to possibility. It convinces you that avoiding pain is safety. But in reality, avoiding pain is the greatest danger of all because it keeps you locked in a prison disguised as security. People who achieve greatness aren't the ones who feel like doing hard things all the time. They're the ones who do them anyway. They've learned to flip the switch. They've trained themselves to recognize the discomfort as a signal, not to run, to lean in. Every time they do, they grow stronger. They start craving that feeling because they know resistance means progress. But here's the mistake many of you make. You think the gap between where you are and where you want to be is a giant leap. So you wait for the right moment, the big burst of inspiration, the perfect plan. That's not how growth works. Growth is built in micro decisions. It's built in that single moment when you want to quit, but you take one more step. It's built in that single morning when you don't want to get out of bed, but you stand up anyway. That's where the shift happens. Not in the grand gestures, but in the quiet choices when no one is watching. I want you to picture your life 5 years from now. If you keep choosing comfort, be honest with yourself. Where will you be? How will you feel? You be proud of the choices you've made, or will you regret all the opportunities you let pass because they were wrapped in discomfort? Now flip it. Imagine your life if for the next 5 years, you leaned into the hard things. Imagine the strength you'd build, the skills you'd master, the relationships you'd heal, the confidence you'd develop. That life is not reserved for a select few. That life is reserved for the ones who choose discomfort over convenience. Reality is, comfort feels good in the moment, but it always costs you more later. Discomfort feels hard in the moment, but it always pays you more later. So the question you need to ask yourself is simple. Do you want the pain of discipline now, the pain of regret later? One of them is unavoidable. You don't get to escape both. Let me make it clear, you don't have to love discomfort, but you must respect it. You must recognize that every time you step into resistance, you're building a stronger version of yourself. Every rep you push when you don't want to, every call you make when you're nervous, every difficult decision you face head on. It's like stacking bricks to build an unshakable foundation. That foundation becomes the life you're proud to live. And here's the kicker: when you live this way long enough, what once felt impossible becomes your new normal. What once terrified you becomes your baseline. That's when life gets exciting, because you realize there are no limits except the ones comfort convinced you were real. Comfort is seductive, but it's a thief. It steals your time, your growth, your future. And if you let it, it will rob you of the life you were created to live. Discomfort is the doorway to everything you want. And the sooner you choose to walk through it, the sooner you unlock the life you've been waiting for. So don't just chase what feels good in the moment. Chase what builds you. Chase what stretches you. Chase what makes you stronger, sharper, and unshakable. Because the truth is simple: comfort is where your dreams go to die, and discomfort is where your destiny begins. Your emotions are not reliable guides for the life you want. If you wait until you feel like doing something, you'll never do the things that matter most. Think about it. How many times have you said you'd start working out when you feel motivated? How many times have you promised yourself you'd finally take action on your dream when inspiration struck? And how many times did that feeling never come? Or worse, it came for a day or two and then disappeared the moment life got inconvenient. That's because emotions are temporary. They're like the weather. They shift, they fluctuate. And if you let them dictate your life, you'll spend your entire existence on an emotional roller coaster. Sometimes high, sometimes low, never consistent enough to build anything meaningful. The people who build extraordinary lives don't rely on emotion. They rely on discipline. Discipline is doing what needs to be done, especially when you don't feel like doing it. Discipline is the bridge between intention and result, between potential and reality. Without it, your goals are just wishes. With it, your life becomes unstoppable. Now, let's be real. Discipline isn't sexy. Motivation is sexy because it feels good. You watch a video, you read a quote, you hear a story, and for a moment you're fired up. But discipline is the grind. It's setting your alarm and actually getting up. It's showing up to the gym when your body aches. It's making the sales call when your confidence is low. Discipline isn't glamorous, but it's what creates greatness. You see, every time you let your emotions decide for you, you're strengthening weakness, teaching yourself that it's okay to avoid hard things if you don't feel like it. But every time you act in spite of how you feel, you're strengthening discipline. You're teaching yourself that you are in control, not your emotions. Over time, that rewires your entire identity. You stop being someone who's tossed around by moods and become someone who can be counted on by yourself and by others. Think about how powerful that is. Imagine if you only worked when you felt like it, only ate healthy when it was convenient, only gave effort when you were in the mood. Where would your life be? Where is your life right now because of that very pattern? Now imagine if you became the kind of person who does what's required regardless of emotion. What could you accomplish in a year? In 5 years? In 10? That's the difference discipline makes. It multiplies over time until your life looks unrecognizable. The truth is, emotions are often liars. They tell you you're too tired when you're not. They tell you you're not ready when you are. They tell you it's too risky when the real risk is doing nothing. If you listen to them, they'll keep you small. If you decide to act in spite of them, they'll eventually align with your actions. Because here's the secret: emotions follow motion. You don't feel confident first and then act. You act first and then the confidence shows up. You don't feel like working out first and then go. You go. And once you're moving, the energy kicks in. Waiting to feel right before you act is a trap. Acting first is the way to create the feelings you want. There's a story I love about a runner who said, "I only run on the days I don't feel like running." Why? Because those are the days that matter most. Anyone can do the right thing when they feel like it. The person who does it when they don't feel like it, that's the person who wins. That's the person who can't be stopped. Because the world is full of people who quit when it's inconvenient. Be the one who doesn't. Let me tell you something. You're not always going to feel like showing up for your family, your health, your business, your dream. You're not always going to feel like pushing harder, making sacrifices, or facing challenges. That's exactly why discipline is your greatest weapon. Discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's about stacking small wins every day until they add up to something massive. It's about choosing progress over feelings again and again until it becomes automatic. Now, don't confuse discipline with punishment. Discipline isn't about beating yourself up or living a miserable life. Discipline is the ultimate form of self-respect. When you discipline yourself, you're saying, I value my future more than my excuses. I value who I'm becoming more than how I feel right now. That's not punishment, that's power. Here's the thing: every act of discipline pays you twice. First, pays you in the result. You get stronger, you get healthier, you get closer to your goal. But it also pays you in identity. You start seeing yourself as someone who follows through, someone who can be trusted, someone who's in control. That second payoff is priceless because it builds momentum. The more disciplined you become, the easier it gets to stay disciplined. And yes, there will be days you fall short. There will be moments you give into feelings, and that's okay. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. The real danger isn't in slipping, it's in believing the slip means you failed. Discipline means you get back up. Discipline means you reset and recommit no matter how many times it takes. Because in the end, Success doesn't come from never falling down. It comes from refusing to stay down. So I want you to challenge yourself starting today. The next time your emotions tell you to skip something, don't. The next time your feelings tell you to wait, act anyway. The next time comfort whispers in your ear, not today, you stand up and say, today, especially today. If you do that enough times, you'll start to see a pattern. You'll realize you're not controlled by your emotions, you're in command of them. And when you get to that place, when your discipline becomes stronger than your feelings, there's nothing in this world that can stop you. Because in the end, it's simple emotions make you weak. Discipline makes you unstoppable. Everybody wants the big win. Everybody wants the breakthrough moment, the standing ovation, the recognition, the money, the freedom, the body, the dream business, the lifestyle. Very few people are willing to pay the price of consistency, the price of the small, unsexy actions repeated every single day when nobody's clapping, when nobody's watching, when nobody even cares. That's the difference between the person who talks about success and the person who actually lives it. It's not the one big leap. It's the accumulation of thousands of tiny steps done with discipline. Success doesn't come in fireworks. It comes in quiet choices. It comes from saying no when your friends say yes. It comes from putting in an extra hour when you'd rather relax. It comes from choosing the apple over the donut, the book over the endless scroll, the workout over the couch. It comes from the phone calls you don't feel like making, the emails you don't feel like sending, the late nights, the early mornings, the decisions that seem so small in the moment but compound into something extraordinary over time. The problem is most people underestimate the power of small. They think, if I can't change everything at once, bother. That's the lie that keeps them stuck, because it's never about doing everything perfectly right now. It's about doing something consistently. It's about making deposits into your future every single day. Workout won't change your body, but one workout repeated 100 times will. One sales call won't transform your business, but one call repeated 1,000 times will. One act of courage won't change your identity. Courage practiced daily rewires your entire life. The truth is, greatness is boring. It's repetitive. It's not glamorous in the moment. You'll rarely feel excited about it. That's why so few people stick with it. They get started. They get hyped. The second it feels mundane, they quit. They think success should feel exciting all the time. But the reality is success feels like boredom before it feels like greatness. It feels like doing the same workout routine, following the same plan, making the same sacrifices day in and day out. And the ones who embrace that boredom, who lean into the repetition, are the ones who break through. Now, I want you to imagine your dream, whatever it is. Maybe it's financial freedom. Maybe it's a thriving business. Maybe it's a strong body. Maybe it's a healthy relationship. Picture it clearly. Now ask yourself, are you willing to do the small, consistent actions that no one applauds, no one celebrates, no one even notices? Because that's the real price. That's the admission ticket. Everyone wants the outcome, but very few are willing to love the process. And this is why most people fail. They think success is about intensity. They sprint for a week, maybe a month, and then burn out. But life is not a sprint. It's a marathon. You don't need intensity once in a while. You need consistency every single day. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be relentless. You just need to keep stacking bricks on top of another until you've built something unshakable. Let me tell you, there's no such thing as overnight success. That's a myth sold to the impatient. Every person you admire, every person you look at and say, whoa, they've made it. They put in years, sometimes decades of invisible work. They sacrificed weekends. They missed parties. They pushed when no one was cheering. They showed up when they didn't feel like it. And now you see the highlight reel. You didn't see the hidden hours. Success is always built in the shadows before it's celebrated in the light. The beautiful thing is this works for everyone. You don't have to be the smartest, the strongest, or the most talented. If you're willing to do the work consistently, you will pass the people who are more gifted but inconsistent. Talent sets the floor. Discipline raises the ceiling. That's why small daily sacrifices matter more than big bursts of effort. Consistency beats intensity every single time. And yes, it's hard. It's hard to say no to short-term pleasure for long-term gain. It's hard to wake up early when the bed feels warm. It's hard to eat clean when junk food is calling. It's hard to make calls when rejection stings. But guess what? It's supposed to be hard. If it were easy, everyone would have the life they dream of. The fact that it's hard is what makes it valuable. That's what separates the few from the many. You've got to fall in love with the grind. You've got to fall in love with the days when it doesn't feel like it's working, when the progress is invisible, when the reward hasn't shown up yet. Because those are the days that are shaping you. Those are the days that are teaching you resilience, grit, patience, strength. And those are the days that most people walk away. If you can outlast them, if you can keep showing up when it feels like nothing's happening, eventually everything will happen. Consistency is the ultimate multiplier. One choice by itself is small, but string 1,000 together and it's unstoppable. Think about compounding interest. You put in a little every day and at first it looks like nothing. But give it time, give it consistency, and suddenly it explodes into something massive. That's exactly how your habits work. That's how your effort works. That's how your life changes slowly, quietly, invisibly until one day the results are undeniable. So stop waiting for the big moment. Stop waiting for the perfect time. Stop waiting for someone to hand you the opportunity. Your life changes when you master the small things, the daily disciplines, the tiny sacrifices, the boring, repetitive actions that no one notices, but everyone eventually admires. That's where the real magic is. Because here's the reality. Greatness doesn't come from what you do once in a while. It comes from what you do every single day. Resistance is not your enemy. Resistance is the exact signal that you're standing at the edge of your next level. Yet most people treat resistance like it's a stop sign, when in reality it's a green light. It's telling you, this is the way. This is the thing you need to face. This is where freedom lives. But what happens the moment resistance shows up, whether it's fear, discomfort, uncertainty, most people back away. They retreat into comfort. In doing so, they lock themselves into the very prisons they've built to avoid pain. Think about it. How many things in your life right now are unfinished, unresolved, or avoided because you didn't want to deal with the resistance? That conversation with a family member you've been putting off, that decision you've been postponing, that dream you've been procrastinating on, every single one of them is resistance. Every single one of them is holding your freedom hostage until you face it. Avoiding resistance doesn't make it disappear, it makes it grow. The longer you run from it, the heavier it gets. Here's the truth. Resistance is not a wall blocking your path, it's the doorway to everything you've been asking for. On the other side of that resistance is strength. On the other side is clarity. On the other side is freedom. You'll never taste that freedom if you keep turning back every time the road gets uncomfortable. Resistance shows up in different forms. Sometimes it's physical, the workout that feels too hard, the diet that feels too restrictive. Sometimes it's emotional, the apology that feels too vulnerable, the forgiveness that feels too heavy, the risk that feels too scary. Sometimes it's mental, the project that overwhelms you, the business idea that seems too big, skill you feel unqualified for. But no matter the form, it's always the same principle. Resistance is the place where growth lives. Think about your life. The best moments you've had, the breakthroughs, the transformations, they all came after resistance. You didn't want to face the fear, but you did. You didn't want to endure the pain, but you pushed through. You didn't want to do the work, but you committed anyway. And afterward, what did you feel? Relief, strength. That's because resistance wasn't there to stop you. It was there to forge you. But here's the catch. If you avoid resistance long enough, you start to accept limitations that aren't even real. You convince yourself that your ceiling is much lower than it actually is. You shrink your dreams down to fit your comfort zone instead of expanding your comfort zone to match your dreams. And you live trapped, not because life put you there, because you surrender to resistance instead of conquering it. There's a reason people say growth and freedom are on the other side of pain. It's not just a nice phrase, it's reality. That business you want to start, it's hiding behind the resistance of failure. That body you want, it's hiding behind the resistance of discipline. That relationship you crave, it's hiding behind the resistance of communication and vulnerability. Everything you want is guarded by resistance, and the only way to claim it is to go through it. The tragedy is most people spend their entire lives running from the very thing that would set them free. They spend years avoiding a tough conversation. In doing so, they live with silent resentment that eats away at them. They spend years avoiding risk, and in doing so, they live with regret that gnaws at their soul. They spend years avoiding hard work, and in doing so, they settle for mediocrity when greatness was always within their reach. Avoidance doesn't protect you. It poisons you, and here's the shift. You have to learn to reframe resistance. Stop seeing it as something to run from and start seeing it as something to run toward. When resistance shows up, you should recognize it as the compass pointing to your breakthrough. The greater the resistance, the greater the reward on the other side. If it doesn't scare you, it won't change you. If it doesn't challenge you, it won't grow you. You want to know how to tell if you're on the right path? Look for resistance. If your life feels too easy, too comfortable, too smooth, it probably means you're not stretching enough. You're not aiming high enough. Because real goals, meaningful goals, the kind that transform your life, they come wrapped in resistance. The people who achieve them aren't the ones who avoid that resistance. They're the ones who lean into it. So here's the question. What are you resisting right now? What's the thing you've been putting off? The thing you keep pushing away? The thing you know you need to do but haven't? That's your assignment. That's your doorway. That's the exact place you need to go. Because the thing you resist the most is the thing that will free you the most once you do it. I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's scary. I know it feels easier to delay, to distract, to deny. But every time you avoid resistance, you give it power. And every time you face resistance, you take that power back. You reclaim your strength. You reclaim your freedom. And you prove to yourself that you're not a slave to fear, you're a master of it. So stop running. Stop hiding. Stop waiting for resistance to disappear, because it never will. Resistance will always be there, but so will the reward. The question is, will you choose to step through? Because the truth is simple. Resistance isn't your barrier, it's your breakthrough. Your identity is not fixed. The person you see in the mirror today is not the person you have to be tomorrow. Every choice you make, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you are becoming. And here's the truth. Most people allow excuses, fear, comfort to cast those votes for them. They tell themselves, I'm not ready yet. I'm not strong enough. I'll start tomorrow. And with every excuse, they're voting for the identity they don't want the person they complain about being. What if you could rewire that identity? What if you could start proving to yourself through action that you are exactly the person capable of greatness? That's what doing what you don't want to do does. It transforms your identity from the inside out. Every time you act against your natural inclination to avoid, every time you step into discomfort, you are teaching your mind, your body, very soul, that you are stronger than your excuses. You are proving to yourself that your limitations are not fixed, that your boundaries are expandable, that you are capable of far more than you've allowed yourself to believe. Most powerful part of this is that action precedes belief. People often wait to feel capable, confident, or ready, and then they act. That's backward. You act first, and through your actions, you build the belief, the confidence, the identity you seek. Every single time you do something hard, something uncomfortable, something you'd rather avoid, you are stacking proof for yourself. I am not weak. I am not limited. I am not defined by fear or comfort. I am someone who can step up even when it's hard. That proof compounds over time until your identity aligns with the person you want to become. Think about it this way. Your habits aren't just habits. They're statements about who you are. You skip the workout, you're silently telling yourself, I am someone who avoids discomfort. When you push through, when you do the work anyway, you're telling yourself, I am someone who is disciplined, resilient, capable. Every action is a vote for the identity you are shaping, whether you realize it or not. And the more consistent you are with the hard choices, the faster your identity changes. The danger is in inaction and waiting for the perfect conditions, the perfect mindset, the perfect moment. That waiting is a vote against yourself. That waiting reinforces the identity. You don't want the person who procrastinates, the person who fears change, the person who avoids growth. The minute you decide to act, even when you don't feel like it, even when it's uncomfortable, you start rewriting your story. You begin the process of becoming a person who thrives in challenge, who conquers fear, who embraces responsibility. Here's the beautiful part. You don't need permission. You don't need to wait for external validation. You don't need to be chosen, discovered, or approved. The power to rewire your identity is in your hands. The choices you make every single day. The moment you decide, I will do what I don't want to do, is the moment you take full control of who you are. You become the author of your own story, the sculptor of your own destiny, the person who cannot be shaken by circumstance. It's not always easy. Change is uncomfortable because your old identity resists it. Your habits, your routines, your mind, your self-concept, they fight against transformation because they are accustomed to what is familiar. But the very act of persistence, the act of doing what you don't want to do, breaks that resistance. Every uncomfortable decision chips away at the old version of you, and slowly, imperceptibly at first, a new, stronger, bolder version takes shape. You have to understand that identity is the ultimate leverage. You become the kind of person who embraces hard work, who faces fear, who takes responsibility. Success becomes inevitable. Opportunities that once seemed out of reach now feel natural. Challenges that once intimidated you now feel like stepping stones. People begin to notice, not because you're trying to impress them, but because your actions radiate a new level of strength, clarity, and confidence that is impossible to ignore. Every time you do something you don't want to do, you are also expanding the boundaries of what you consider possible. Today, it may be making that call you dread, confronting the difficult conversation, or finishing that project you've been avoiding. Tomorrow, your confidence grows. Once seemed impossible now feels achievable. Step by step, choice by choice, action by action, your identity expands to match the life you've been craving. And let's be honest, sometimes it's terrifying. Sometimes you doubt yourself, question your capabilities, feel the pull of old habits. That's normal. That's part of the process. The key is to act anyway, to push through that discomfort, to make the hard choice even when your mind is screaming, stop, to take the steps that redefine who you are. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's acting in spite of it. And with every courageous act, your identity strengthens. Over time, this becomes a habit of transformation. You stop seeing yourself as someone who avoids challenge and start seeing yourself as someone who confronts it head on. You stop being defined by fear and start being defined by action. You stop allowing excuses to dictate your life and start proving to yourself day after day that you are someone who shows up no matter what. That is how extraordinary people are made. That is how resilient, unshackable, unstoppable identities are forged. And here's the final truth. The person you become is far more important than any single achievement. The skills, the money, the accolades, they are temporary. They come and go. But the identity you build, the person who does what others avoid, faces fear, who steps into discomfort, that identity lasts forever. That identity shapes your legacy, your influence, your impact. That identity determines the quality, depth, and meaning of every single day of your life. So don't wait for your feelings to align. Don't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect mindset. Don't wait to feel ready. Act. Every time you act, you are proving to yourself that you are more capable, more disciplined, powerful than you believed. Every action is a brick, and you are building a fortress of identity that no obstacle can shake. Every step forward, even the smallest, is proof that you are becoming the person you were meant to be. Because in the end, the person you become is the greatest reward of all. The reward lies on the other side of hard. That's not just a motivational phrase, it's a law of life. Every goal worth achieving, every dream worth chasing, Every level of success worth reaching is guarded by difficulty, discomfort, and resistance. There's no shortcut, there's no bypass, there's no magic formula that skips the work. The life you dream of is always waiting for you on the far side of effort, the far side of fear, on the far side of the things you don't want to do. Most people quit before they get there because the journey feels too long, too uncomfortable, too painful. They see the mountain and they measure it against their current energy, their current emotions, their current motivation, and they say, not today, maybe tomorrow. And tomorrow never comes because life doesn't pause. Opportunities don't wait for you to feel ready. The universe rewards action, not hesitation. People who reach the summit are not the ones who waited for the pain to disappear. They are the ones who climbed anyway, step by step, even when their legs burned, even when their lungs burned, even when every fiber of their being screamed to stop. Here's the thing. The reward is always proportional to the resistance. The bigger the challenge, the bigger the opportunity. The harder the work, the sweeter the victory. The longer the journey, the more powerful the transformation. Life doesn't give extraordinary results to those who seek comfort. It gives extraordinary results to those who persist through struggle, to those who embrace discomfort, to those who do what others refuse to do. You want to know the secret of every successful person you admire. They didn't stop when it got hard. They didn't wait for motivation. They didn't let excuses dictate their pace. They understood one simple truth: real magic lives on the other side of pain. And because they understood that, they took the steps no one else would take. They sacrificed, they endured, they persisted, and they outlasted everyone who quit along the way. Think about your own life for a moment. How many things have you stopped pursuing because they got uncomfortable? How many dreams have you let fade because the road was too steep, too long, too lonely? Every time you gave in, you postponed the reward. Every time you avoided the hard thing, you delayed the life you wanted. But the moment you choose to face it, the moment you choose action over avoidance, the moment you do what you don't want to do, you step onto the path where reward is waiting. Make no mistake, the reward is not always instant. In fact, it rarely is. That's why most people quit. They expect instant gratification. They want the results before the work. Life is not a vending machine. You can't put in a coin and immediately get a transformation. You have to plant the seeds, water them daily, and trust the process. You have to endure the seasons of growth, the storms, the droughts, the invisible labor that happens behind the scenes. And when you do, when you persevere, the harvest comes. And it is always worth it. The reward is not just the external result. It's the person you become along the way. The reward is your strength, your confidence, your resilience. Every challenge you face, every discomfort you embrace, every step you take beyond what you thought was possible reshapes you. It transforms your mind, your body, and your character. The reward lives in who you become while chasing it, not just in what you achieve at the finish line. Imagine for a moment the life you want. Visualize it clearly. Now ask yourself, how much discomfort are you willing to endure to get there? Because the truth is, the discomfort is inevitable. The challenges are inevitable. The fear, the doubt, the setbacks, they are all part of the package. You can't escape them. You can't skip them. You can't wish them away, but you can face them. You can move through them. You can do what you don't want to do. And by doing so, you access the life you desire. This is why the hard choices matter more than the easy ones. Choosing the workout over the couch, choosing discipline over indulgence, choosing to start the conversation instead of avoiding it, choosing to take responsibility instead of blaming circumstances. These are the choices that lead to reward. They may feel small in the moment, even painful. They compound into something unstoppable. And every time you take them, you prove to yourself that you are capable of more than you realized. And here's a critical point: the reward often exceeds your imagination. When you finally reach the other side of struggle, when you finally achieve what you've been chasing, you realize that the fear and pain you felt along the way were temporary, but the transformation is permanent. You gain freedom you never thought you could have, confidence you never thought you could embody, clarity you never thought you could experience. You gain the life you wanted. But even more, you gain the person capable of sustaining it. Most people never experience this because they stop at the first sign of difficulty. They see the challenge and they calculate the effort, then they shrink back. They underestimate their own capacity. They overestimate the discomfort. Here's the reality: your capacity is far greater than your fear. Your resilience is far greater than your doubt. Your strength is far greater than the temporary pain of today. And the only way to discover that is by stepping into the hard, by doing what you don't want to do, by enduring what others refuse to endure. You've got to start seeing the hard work, the sacrifice, the effort, the struggle not as obstacles, but as gateways. They are the checkpoints on the path to reward. The milestones that separate the ordinary from the extraordinary. They are the proving grounds for anyone serious about creating a life of meaning, impact, and achievement. Every time you embrace them, you are not just moving toward a goal, you are moving toward a version of yourself capable of greatness. And yes, there will be setbacks. There will be days when it feels impossible, when you question whether it's worth it. Every excuse in your body whispers, quit. That's normal. That's expected. The difference between those who reach the reward and those who don't is simple persistence. The willingness to keep going even when it hurts, even when it's inconvenient, even when the mind says no. The willingness to do what you don't want to do every single day until the reward is undeniable. So here's the call to action. Don't run from the hard. Don't shy away from the challenge. Don't postpone your dreams because the path is uncomfortable. The only way to get to the life you want is to step through the difficulty. The only way to claim the reward is to endure the effort. Only way to discover what you're truly capable of is to do what you don't want to do. Because in the end, the life you dream of, the body, the freedom, the impact, the relationships, the peace, the success, it's waiting for you. It's always been waiting on the other side of hard.